Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Morgan, the Ryker chick. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my top 5 tips and tricks for touring on a Can-Am Ryker. Let's get into it. All right, you guys, so if you saw the most recent videos that I posted, you would see that they were about our fall trip up to the mountains where we toured the Blue Ridge Parkway. This was a trip unlike anything that I had experienced before. Last year, we took our motorcycles from Florida up to North Georgia. We rented an Airbnb and we just sort of rode in different directions each day, but we stayed at one central location. This year, we decided to try something a little bit different and we trailered up to Georgia again. We have family that lives up there. We trailered our motorcycles up to North Georgia, left our trucks and trailers on the property, loaded up our bikes, and hit the road. Our travels took us from Blairsville, Georgia, all the way up the Blue Ridge Parkway to Shenandoah National Park in Virginia and back down again. All in all, in a 6-day time period, we covered 1,200 miles. Now, besides myself on this trip was my husband, our friend Alec, and my mom and dad. Now, my mom and dad have been riding for probably about 12 years or so. So they've done trips like this. They're the seasoned pros at this. But for myself, my husband, and our friend, this was a brand new experience for us. Now, a question that I commonly see asked is, can you even tour on a Ryker? Everybody talks about when you're comparing the Ryker versus the Spyder, how the Spyder is the touring machine, and it is. It is a beautiful piece of machinery, luxury features, lots of storage and comfort, especially if you have a passenger with you. I've done a whole series of videos comparing Rykers versus Spyders. I've also shared my experience when my husband and I rented Spyders and got to ride those for a day. But this was my first time touring on my Ryker. So if you're considering taking your Ryker on a long haul trip, I just want to talk to you about the tips and tricks, the things that I learned, and the things maybe that I didn't expect along the way, and maybe it can help you. So tip number 1 is kind of for touring in general, but you have to get in the mental space of going a certain distance each and every day, regardless of the weather and the circumstances. For us, we took this trip at peak leaf season in the fall, up in the mountains. Everything is booked up as far as the hotels. We had a certain itinerary we had to follow. So it really didn't matter if it was raining, sunny, foggy, cold, windy. You have to be prepared for just about every situation. And you just have to know and sort of prepare yourself mentally that you have to go that distance, no matter what is going on. As opposed to last year's trip where we had a rainy day while we were there, so we just said, yeah, we're just not going to go out today. We're just going to hang at home. It's miserable, gross weather. No one wants to ride in that, so we just hung out at the beautiful Airbnb. So I think just sort of knowing that in your head, that you have to go that certain distance and that's just how this kind of trip is, will sort of set you up for success on this tour. The second thing I learned is that in order to tour with a Ryker, you do need to make some modifications to help you along the way. Now, I have a 2020 Ryker Rally Edition, so it already came with the upgraded shocks, the little bit more comfortable seat, the rear tire that's designed more to handle rougher road situations. But along the way, as I've had my Ryker, I have made modifications that sort of made it better for touring. I upgraded my seat last year. I got a Corbin seat, which is much more comfortable than the stock seat. I also added the 3-piece luggage set from Sling Mods for that extra storage. Even then, that's not a lot of storage, so I had to carry a touring pack with me that I had to strap to my bike. I do have an entire video about that, about the packing process, what tour pack I used, and how I got everything situated on my Ryker for this adventure, and I will link that down below. I also highly recommend that if you don't have a windshield on your Ryker, definitely recommend getting one of those. Even if you're just using it to just ride around just locally, a windshield makes a huge difference. I have the adventure windshield. I started with the sport windshield, upgraded a while back to the adventure windshield, and love that. It really helps with having that sort of strong winds in your face, especially if you're ever hitting the highway. It helps with buffeting on the helmet. It just makes for a more enjoyable ride. And I really feel like the windshields that Can-Am designed for the Ryker really look nice, and they don't take away from the overall look of the Ryker itself. All right, so the next thing, and again, this is just for touring in general, but something that I learned from this trip is about mountain miles. Now, I talked about this a couple times in a few of the vlogs, and I think it was just something we all sort of collectively learned. I mean, I think my mom and dad sort of already knew from their previous adventures, but it was definitely a new and kind of shocking thing to me and my husband and Alec, was that the mileage we had to go each day really meant nothing in the grand scheme of things, especially when you're traveling on back roads that are curvy and winding, especially mountain roads where you're going maybe 30, 35 miles an hour for most of the trip. So if you start out each day knowing that you have to cover 200 miles, if Google Maps says it's going to take X number of hours to get there, it's going to take much, much longer than that on motorcycles and on the route that we were taking. Now, we were, of course, there for the scenery. We were there for the beautiful fall leaves. We're from Florida. We don't have season changes here. So we did, of course, get to enjoy those beautiful mountain views and the leaves and the cooler weather. It just took a long time to get to our destination each and every day. So you just have to sort of mentally be prepared for riding 6 to 8 hours a day. And I'll get a little bit more into that later in the video. The great thing with this kind of trip is that we would not have gotten to see everything that we saw if we didn't do the trip like we did. I mean, like I said, we really started our trip in Florida, and then by the end of it, as far north as we went, we were in Virginia, and that's incredible. Doing a trip like we did last year, we saw bits and pieces of Georgia and into North Carolina and Tennessee and kind of that area, but we were able to travel so much more and see so much more because, you sort of have to continuously push yourself along. And that kind of leads me right into tip 4, is that this kind of trip, and especially with what I was talking about earlier about the different weather conditions and things like that, really makes you a stronger rider. We have, at the end of the day, at the end of this whole trip, we have 1,200 additional miles under our belt. Again, if you're not even just looking at the mileage, we've got 6 days with 6 to 8 hours a day in the saddle. That is a tremendous amount of experience, and putting ourselves in situations that were brand new. I had never ridden in thick, foggy conditions and that much kind of misting rain and weather that was that cold, and certainly not on curvy mountain roads. So at the end of the day, I am grateful that we were able to sort of put ourselves in a position like that, especially under the guidance of my parents, who have so much more experience than us, sort of added that extra layer of comfort and confidence that they were there if something went awry. They kind of knew what to do. At the end of the day, I think it's important if you are trying to grow as a motorcycle rider to not just take your motorcycle out in the most perfect ideal conditions. That doesn't make you a stronger rider, because even if you're only using your motorcycle to go 20 minutes down the road and back, you're going to end up at some point with some situation that challenges you, whether it's unexpected weather or, oh gosh, the sun set really quickly, I didn't realize it was going to be nighttime. So if there's something that makes you uncomfortable, I think it's smart to prepare ahead of time and put yourself in that situation so that you gain that comfort level. And that leads me right into the last major tip, the last thing that I learned on my trip touring with my Ryker, is that you have to be prepared for a trip like this. So I'm not just talking about the hotels and the route and everything. Obviously, that is a very planned out situation. I'm talking about preparing yourself physically and mentally for a trip like this. I think it would just make it so much more enjoyable. I think one of the biggest things I learned was that I did not prepare enough physically for riding and being in the saddle for as long as we were each day. So like I said, we live in Florida. We took this trip in October in the fall. So we were just coming out of summertime here in Florida. It was a very hot and brutal summer. Didn't do a whole lot of riding this summer, not very much at all. So I highly suggest, if you're going to take a trip where you are going to be spending a tremendous amount of time on your motorcycle, get out there and slowly start building your stamina on your motorcycle. I almost feel like at the end of the first day or so of our trip, I almost felt like I ran a marathon without doing any training whatsoever, because we just kind of went months and months and months with very minimal riding. And then we went 6 days of 6 to 8 hours a day on the road. And looking back, I was like, yeah, like I was hurting afterwards. And it wasn't just me, it was everybody with us was very, very sore and very tired. But I felt like as we went along, I felt like my body was starting to get used to doing that. And so I just remember thinking like I should have prepared a little bit more for this. So overall, it was a great trip. We saw a lot of really incredible places, a lot of beautiful scenery, loved the cooler weather, and obviously getting to spend time with my loved ones, my family, my friends, my husband, getting to spend that much time away in the beautiful mountains, in the fresh air. It's so good for the soul. So I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that if you are planning on taking a road trip on your Ryker, that maybe this gave you some helpful advice. So let me know down in the comments below, are you planning on taking a road trip and where are you going? That's part of why I like to have the content that I do on my channel. I like to show you not only the modifications, but also the places that I go. So I show you what you can do to your Ryker and what you can do with your Ryker. But yes, the age-old question, can you tour on a Ryker? 100% yes, you can. Maybe you gotta do a couple things and you gotta prepare, but I think that's with any motorcycle. You gotta prepare before you take a trip like that. As far as performance and the trip itself, my Ryker handled beautifully. It handled those mountain roads, those wet conditions, the curves of the mountains and everything, like a champ, no problem at all. So that is it, you guys. Ask any questions that I might have missed in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, consider hitting that subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up, share it with your friends. Make sure your notification bells are on so you never miss a future upload. And until next time, you guys ride safe, be kind, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.